Alrighty. Whoa. I like massive in this. I look like a bouncer. Can't come in here. Alrighty. State of the world in cookies.
Yeah.
The world's going to shit. Let's talk about sweet things. Hey everyone, welcome back to a freshly baked new episode of Speak Freely. I am one of the main co-hosts, David B, along with the other main co-host, this way, Mr. Kuno Stars, my friend, my dude, my love. How are you?
I love you, man. We should feel free to say that as two.
Yes, we should feel we have the freedom to express our pursuit of happiness and amend our relationship, our constitution. If I don't know where I'm going with that, but
constitutional right to love one another as heterosexual men. Yes.
Yes, and we are firmly. That doesn't mean that we're not accepting of, all kinds of love. We're just saying our love is strictly platonic, or is it?
It is. All right.
There's an election happening. There's a big old election happening right now in the midst of us recording this.
Yeah. So as of this recording, we do not know who the president is. Technically.
Okay. We know who our president is right now, and he is.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And we
have a president.
Unfortunately. We do as of right now, but we don't know who our next president might be. We have a very, very good guess, and I don't want to jinx it, but it's like 90% certain, unless some kind of bullshit comes up, right?
Voter fraud.
You stop counting the votes. I win. Stop counting them because I win if you stop counting them. We are, of course, this is a little bit pre-recorded. We're dropping this episode a week after we recorded it. So this is like today, we could pull back the curtain a little bit. Today's November 5th. As of right now, the election hasn't been called, but a quick Google search shows us that Joe Biden is leading with an estimated 264 of the electoral votes, while our unfortunate president of the time, Donald Trump, is a little bit behind with 214 of the electoral votes. So still anybody's game.
Yeah. Which three states are still counting?
No, it's not. All right. Well, technically speaking, this is I'm doing this on Google, and this is and Google has the Associated Press up. Technically speaking,
Nevada
still being counted. Pennsylvania still being counted. North Carolina allegedly, and Georgia, according to the Associated Press. If you look at other websites, their results are a little different. But I think it's safe to say, for the most part, Associated Press is
it's pretty good, pretty reliable.
It's pretty reliable. So, yeah, Nevada's still being counted. Georgia's still being counted. North Carolina and Pennsylvania. It looks like they're already calling Arizona for Biden, and I think last time I checked, they were still deciding for Wisconsin and Michigan, I think, but it looks like they've been called as well. So, I guess Alaska's still technically in the midst of being counted as well. Yeah, they only have 50%. Oh, okay, so Alaska is also being counted. I always forget Alaska's a state. Is that messed up to say?
It's like 40. You have a younger brother,
Yeah, that's fair to say. But we wanted to quickly open up this episode with the state of our union, the state of the world right now. COVID's still unfortunately a thing. It looks like a lot of countries are gearing up for a second close down. Apparently, like this thing is surging again. Like
a lot of countries in Europe.
Yeah, Italy closed down again. England closed down again. France.
Heard France and Spain were getting ready to close down.
Yeah, they were getting ready to close down. I haven't
Yeah.
heard that they closed down yet. So this virus is still very, very real. So please, everybody, just be safe. I know we're all kind of sick and tired of living this weird pseudo life, but if we can all legitimately work together to nip this in the bud, we can. We just all have to be in the same page with each other. So let's try to do that so we can get back to going to concerts and getting ourselves wasted on a Saturday night at a bar, spending ridiculous amounts of money for a drink you could easily make at your home for a quarter of that price. Please, let's do it. Let's do it for each other.
Let's do it for the drinks.
Do it
and for each other, obviously.
No, but mostly for the booze, man. Let's be real. It's mostly for that alcohol that it's for socializing. It's not the booze. It's for being with friends. It's the booze. But yeah, man, it's weird, right? Like, let's jump into it. Like, what a wild. I use that word a lot, but there's no other way to describe things that I just find bananas. What a wild election, dude! It has been insane.
Yeah.
Right.
What was your feeling prior to Tuesday? Like, what did you expect the results to be? Because I know it is different than what I thought it was going to be.
Honestly, legitimately, I was of the mindset of being like, it's going to be close.
Yeah, I didn't.
Living in the neighborhood I live in, living in Texas, so living in Houston, right? Well, technically, I live outside of Houston, but living near Houston, which is very much a liberal state.
Are you in the same county as Houston?
No, different county. Houston's Harris County. I live in Fort Bend County, so different county. So knowing that, right? You go to Houston, obviously. Biden things everywhere, very liberal, but everything else around it, Trump and Pence, Trump and Pence, Trump and Pence. So I was like, having that weird juxtaposition. I was just like, okay, like that's what made me feel like this is going to be a close race because it was very obvious to me like minorities and young people are going to come out in groves for Biden. Like, I honestly came in knowing like they're not going to let 2016 happen again, thinking like there's no way this guy can win and he can win again. So y'all better get out there and vote. So I knew that, but I also knew a lot of people I personally know too were going to re-elect or vote again for Trump. So knowing that, I was like, this is going to be, that was my initial thought. It's going to be very, very close, like very, very close.
Man, maybe it is because of where I live here in Southern California. I didn't think it was going to be this close. I thought for sure like Trump had a chance, but I didn't think it was going to be this close in so many states.
I kind of did,
man.
Just because I live in a red state.
Yeah, I guess it depends on where you live. I thought for sure this is going to be like the year where like, oh, okay, no, like we are going to rebuke Donald Trump and everything he stands for, right? All the racism, all the misogyny, everything, all the ridiculousness that he stands for. I legit thought the countries would be like, no, like we are not about that. And it's kind of heartbreaking to see that a lot of the country is like I don't know what it is.
I really think
I do not understand how anyone can support this person.
It's not so much because here's the thing, right? Here's the crazy thing, and this is the media, right? I could see where you're coming from and how you see that being where you live, and then like, obviously knowing you and knowing I have a lot of my close friends still live back in California. The company I work for is out there, and the people I work with are out there, and knowing how they view everything, I can get how that's the way Trump looks for you, right? He's a misogynistic, opportunistic, narcissistic, sexist, xenophobic person, right? Transphobic, all that stuff. I can see how you guys see that. Here in a red state, he's not painted like that at all. At worst, he's painted as like, oh, he's a buffoon. He's a little wacky. He's kind of an idiot, but he's not really those things, right? For a lot of people here, he's more than anything a representation of the Republican Party, and more than that, the Republican values, which a lot of people here in the South, you got a lot of Christians, right? A lot of Catholic Christian people So a lot of those views are shared by the Republican Party, and that's why they voted for Trump. I know it's like, but that's not what he is, right? Because like talking to people who live out of California, they don't see Trump that way. It's no, he represents misogyny, racism, being transphobic, homophobic. He represents that, and I get it. I legitimately do. I think what people don't understand, and it's kind of a wild thing, but like depending on what state you live in, it's almost like a different culture. It's almost like a different country within a country, right? Because we have so much landmass here, like, and California is strictly blue, and then Texas, for the most part, is strictly red. So obviously, the way the media portrays the president and how people view the president is surprisingly very different. Because there's a lot of people I know that voted Trump, and I was like, I was a little taken aback too, like how, like there's a lot of Hispanic people that I know that voted for Trump, and I'm like, you remember what he said about our people, right? Like, they're rapists, they're murderers, they're thieves, and some of them I think are good people, right? But they don't see him like that. It's just like, oh, he's an idiot. He just says wild shit. That's the way they kind of brush it off. It's kind of weird. And obviously for me, right? And I know this is like in the community I live and the people I know, it's a little bit controversial. Maybe what I'm about to say, but like for me, that was a deal breaker. Like I tend to think of myself a little more moderate. There's been moments in my 22 years now of being able to vote. No, yeah, 24 years now of being able to vote. There's been moments I voted liberal, and there's been moments I voted Republican, because sometimes either or represent a little bit of what my views are at the time, right? For this election, I couldn't vote for Trump because to me, I do see him the way you see him. Like everything he represents is terrible, and I personally think he's literally ruining anything good about the Republican Party. The party of Lincoln is, like I like to say, he's literally destroying the legacy of that party. But some people just don't see it that way. Like, you can't convince them to see it that way because it's still the Republican Party for them, if that makes sense.
Kind of.
It's a little, I know. It's,
I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's like, it's a lot of it is the media and like the kind of media you consume, because everything is very niche, right? Like everything's very targeted. And I can see, depending where you live and what kind of media is around you, you're going to get certain information. The one thing I have been noticing as like I'm kind of like watching like the map and how like, different counties vote differently. Obviously, yeah, like the heavy populated cities, even within like within Texas, Houston, Dallas, Austin, like those cities, those counties, heavily populated compared to other parts, right?
Yep.
Voted blue. They're voting a little more liberal. And then
I like to add not only heavily populated, but like heavily diverse.
Heavily diverse, yeah.
A lot of different cultures in big cities.
Mm-hmm. And then you get to the more rural areas. In California, Southern California, obviously very diverse, very populated, mostly blue. That's where like a lot of the electoral votes come from in California. Mm-hmm. But if you look at like the northern part of California, where it's a little more woodsy, things a little bit more spread out,
farmland, stuff like that.
A lot of farmlands, a little more rural, right? Mm-hmm. It was actually very red. I was surprised to see that. Mm-hmm. It's a whole different kind of culture.
Yeah, and that's honestly for me, that's kind of like the heartbreaking thing about what politics have become in the United States. It's not just politics, right? It's a culture, which is wild to think about. Like, your political stance shouldn't be inherent to your culture, but it is here. For a lot of people, it is part of their culture, and that to me is bananas, where you can't separate it from your ethnicity almost, like, and that's why I said like there's certain moments in my life, like depending on, obviously I don't lean too far right or too far left, right? So I'm not ashamed to admit there's been certain moments in my life I voted Republican, and then there's certain moments in my life where I voted liberal because it just stood more for what I wanted to. But I feel like I'm fortunate enough to where it doesn't define my ethnicity. It doesn't define my culture, who I vote for. It just like who is going to affect me personally, financially, with healthcare and like all this other stuff, right? Like this, like not that it's superficial, but for lack of a better term, the superficial stuff, right?
For the
Stuff that
most
makes-
part, for the most part, I feel like that's what it should be. Is how is this person going to help me in a
Yeah.
sense, me or my community?
me
Right?
or my community, right? Yeah, exactly. Instead of being like, which person represents my culture better,
Mhm.
which person represents my religious beliefs or my beliefs in general. Like, I feel like that stuff should be separated from your political stance, personally. And I know that's
So-
a little bit impossible too, because sometimes depending on your religious beliefs, right, it kind of does align with some political things, but
Mhm.
I feel like for the most part that should be as far apart as they can be.
So what you're saying is you think that the church and state should be separate.
Oh, heavily. Yeah.
Oh, hmm.
I know. I like I said, I'm exposing myself on this podcast. Yeah. I honestly think church and state should be separated. And that's what this country's like
Founded on.
founded on, separation of church and state. And it's like how can you say that as a Christian Catholic or whatever? It's like, well, yeah, like I wouldn't want the government telling me how I should practice my religion, or I wouldn't want like another religion influencing my government. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't want that at all. And like how can then we turn around and be like, except mine should definitely do all of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that to me sounds insanely hypocritical. And I'm not claiming to be the world's, and I've openly admitted that I do practice Catholicism. I don't claim to be the perfect Catholic or know my religion 1000% through, because there's a lot of things that still baffle me about it. But for the most part, from what I've been able to gather in my short years here on Earth, and the things I've come up with, like either through teachings or just talking to people or just things that I had to personally reconcile on my own. Yeah, I don't want the Catholic Church making rules for our government. And historically speaking, usually when the Catholic Church messes with the government, bad things happen. So, I mean, history repeats itself. We're doomed to repeat it if we don't. What's the saying goes? Like we're doomed to repeat history if we don't mind it or pay attention to it or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Something like that.
I'm lost on it, but yeah. I mean, I don't want the government affecting my religion. At the same time, I don't think my religion has any right to affect the government. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just everyone should just live their lives according to the way they think is best for their lives. Hence the whole pursuit of happiness thing, right? As long as it doesn't harm or affect others, there should really be no qualms about it. That's my belief. I may be wrong, and I'm sure when I die, Jesus and God are going to be like, you know what I mean? But that's where I am personally right now. So,
or they might give you a high five. Like that's exactly what we wanted to convey.
like, dude, that's what we've been saying, bro. Why didn't David? Maybe.
We don't know. We just don't know.
I have no idea. I literally have no idea. I'm just trying to live my life as best as I can for me, while also trying to have as much empathy and sympathy and compassion and mercy for my neighbor. And I mean, my neighbor's everybody outside of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and like this is the wild thing too, because I have a lot of good friends like who are of the LGBTQ plus community, and I love them to death. I legitimately love them to death, and getting to know them and talk to them too. It's like, okay, like I kind of have to also think about the image of my country and the safety of my fellow man. And I know for a lot of people, Trump just represents disaster for them, for better or for worse. That's what he represents. So I was like, for me personally, I felt like it was my moral obligation. And now I'm saying it. I haven't said it anywhere. I'm dropping it here. That's why I voted for Joe
Kanye West.
That's why I voted for Yeet. For Jesus.
I cut you off. Go ahead and say it again.
I voted for Kanye West. You caught me in a lie. No, I voted for Joe. I definitely voted for Joe. just because I think, yeah, he's a better representation of our country. Also, too, we have three branches of government. Joe says a lot of things, and I'm sure he'll try to do as much of it as he can. He's not going to get to all of it because, yeah, unfortunately, the country is still split relatively 50-50. But I feel like compared to what Trump has been saying and doing, mostly what he's been saying, though, I feel like Joe could do a slightly better job of if not amending the country, at least giving a better image for our countrymen and for the world at large.
Yeah.
So Brian, why did you vote for Trump?
Latino for Trump, man. No, I voted for Joe Biden. I think me personally, I think that was the only way to go. I do believe voting here in Southern California, like my one vote probably isn't going to make much of a difference in the overall scheme of what California does with the electoral votes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important for me to, be a part of it. And yeah, I'm probably more liberal than you are. I lean more liberal than you in a lot of senses.
Probably.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it probably has a lot to do with religion, right? Because we're not of the same faith.
Mm-mm.
I think a lot of our core values are very similar.
I think this is the first time we're touching on this too. So for the listener who doesn't know, they know I'm Catholic, but if you don't mind letting people know.
Oh yes, I am Buddhist, or I practice Buddhism. I don't like to say I am Buddhist, but I do practice and advocate for Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like a lot of the core beliefs of like just being a good, decent human being, being there for your community, and supporting the people around you, like supporting your neighbors, like you were saying, like a lot of those core beliefs are there. There are going to be certain differences in the way that you practice, obviously. But I feel like it doesn't necessarily affect our friendship, you and I, and it doesn't necessarily affect our points of view on government. But in this certain instance, right, when you're looking at who the candidates are, and Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I cannot understand how someone with those values can look at Trump and be like, yes, like that is what, like that's what I want representing our country. I hear you, and I don't understand it.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
Believe me, I get it. I mean, just because I explained it doesn't necessarily mean I fully 100% get it too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because like talking to like, again, the community around me and people I know and love, and ask him like, but why? Like, help me understand why. And it's like, well, he represents the party that like represents my values. I'm like, yeah, but like, shouldn't your party elect a better face for it? Like, you know what I mean? Right. Like, but for a lot of people, and maybe this is me trying to be optimistic, it's very much possible because I like to believe in the good of humanity. You know what I mean? But for a lot of people, it was mostly voting for the Republican Party, not necessarily voting for Trump. Like they could separate the two. Whereas for like a lot of other people like you, and like obviously people who voted for Joe, they couldn't separate the man from the values. Like to them, it was two in the same. And I get that too, because ultimately I ended up voting for Joe. So I totally get it. It is a little bananas to wrap your hand around it. And I can't say why that is. I just can't. I don't know. I don't know if it's just like a generational thing. I don't know if it's like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't quite get it either. Like it's been explained to me, and I explained it to you the way they explained it to me. And even then I'm still kind of like baffled by it. So
yeah,
I didn't help anything.
Man.
But for me, it was like with you, it was like, okay, even if he is representing the Republican Party, it's a terrible representation of the Republican Party.
So, let's say if Mike Pence was the candidate for presidency, right? I can understand that. Like, that I can understand if it's Mike Pence.
Yeah.
He hasn't said or done anything too outrageous.
No, not too outrageous.
Right. But when you look at Donald Trump, you're like, I don't understand it.
No.
So, and I may never will. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just have to accept that. Agree to disagree.
I guess, yeah. It's just, yeah. Like the guy I always point to, like the Republican candidate that I personally loved back in the day. I loved John McCain. I thought like he was like the most moderate Republican ever. You know what I mean? And he proved it later on too when he like stopped the Republican Party from trying to abolish the Affordable Care Act.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like he proved like even though he does associate Republican, he doesn't blindly follow Republicans all the way. You know what I mean? Like he proved that in rest in peace, John McCain. So, and I was just like, I was so wishing he would have been their face, but at the same time too, it's wild to think about the fact that people voted for Trump to be the face. That's the thing that kind of like, out of all the candidates Republicans gave you, you were like Trump because he doesn't represent a typical politician. And I'm like, he doesn't represent a decent human. Like. It's wild to think about. It legitimately is, but hey, here we are. And right now, it's looking like it might be Joe's. And it's also looking like Donald Trump is losing his fucking mind. Holy shit, dude. That video I sent you is bananas. Trump basically.
What I loved about that video is the fact that the guy, the anchor, right, reporting was like, we need to stop this right now so we can explain to you why the president is wrong.
He is blatantly lying. Here are the facts. Just point by point. The president said this. That was a lie. The president said this. That too is a lie. The president said this. There's nothing. It's completely unfounded. That was a lie. It was just like 5 minutes of like him being like, the president lied literally about everything he just said on national television. And you know what's wild about it? It's just the fact that like, again, for me, it's like he's completely tarnishing the Republican Party. Because say what you will about conservative values and liberal values, like past candidates, if they lost, both left and right, they lost with decency, regardless of like, maybe something came out later, like there might have been some kind of fraud, whatever. Everyone
in 2000 with Al Gore versus George Bush, right?
Yeah, they lost with decency, and this is the first time I think ever in history. Am I too bold to say ever in history where a president is just like, no, I am not. In fact, I am declaring myself the fucking winner. Fuck all. Like, holy shit. Like,
no president has ever like prematurely be like, I win.
Stop counting the votes. I won. I declare it.
I am the winningest president ever.
See, all the votes right now, if we just count those votes, I win. Stop counting all the other votes.
Oh my God.
It's this shit is bananas, dude. To quote the great Gwen Stefani, this shit is bananas, bro.
Like I legit miss George Bush, you know?
Out of all his like buffoon moments, he was an okay president. We survived 9/11 and we came out relatively okay. Right?
Yeah. I mean, we at the very least he was a charming president, right?
Yeah,
he was a little bit endearing you may not agree with everything he did or said, but he was endearing in a way.
Yeah, and oh my God, dude.
And now this guy, you're right, like the Republican Party is a little bit tarnished.
It's tarnished because of this ass clown. Like legit it is the party of Lincoln, dude. Which like I say that to like, it's the gravitas of like the history of the Republican Party. Like it was the party that for the most part started the path of abolishing slavery, the party of fucking Lincoln. And here's where they're at today. Like, holy shit, dude. It's just, this shit's bananas, man. That's all I can really say about it. It's a bummer.
Bananas.
Look, regardless of people's political beliefs, right? Like the one hope I have, besides obviously hoping the guy I chose to wins it all, but I really hope, and I'm praying to God, this is a pivotal point in our nation to where we can finally turn this fucking ship around and start stop being so divided and start actually being a fucking nation. Start thinking about each other as a community and not as like groups of individuals or groups of small communities. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like it's so cliche, and I know, but it's gonna take both sides coming to a middle ground to where we don't have to agree on literally everything. So we're just not gonna. Human beings just naturally can't agree on everything. It's just the way it is. But coming to some point of agreeing enough to have civil discourse, to have civility in general, to just be a good neighbor to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I hope we get there after this. I don't know if we will. I'm praying and hoping we do, though. So I don't know if that's comforting or not, but I just wanted to say that. Well, that wasn't such a sweet topic. But you know what is sweet, Brian? Besides yourself?
Oh, cookies.
Hell yeah. Let's talk about cookies, dude.
Yes.
Cookies, bro.
This is what people have come for, actually, is cookies.
So if you made it through that whole political part, first of all,
Thank you.
Second of all, here's something sweet to talk about. We're gonna talk about cookies. Yay! Who doesn't love cookie except people who might be allergic to something in the cookies? But even then, there's ways to get around it, right? There's like gluten-free cookies and stuff.
There are gluten-free cookies. There are eggless cookies. There are
dairy-free cookies.
Dairy-free cookies.
Bro, who doesn't love a good fucking cookie?
Yeah.
Right. So today, besides everything we just talked about, we're also talking about some good fucking cookies, man.
So, in order for me to like, because what I did was I looked up, different kinds of cookies to make sure, okay, these are like my top 5 kinds of cookies that I want to, highlight today. I looked up what constitutes as a cookie. And a cookie is a typically small and sweet and flat cake.
Okay.
So, right. So like a cupcake is not a cookie. Right. So typically it's the shape of the so-called cake and the texture that gives it the name a cookie. So small, typically round, flat, and a little bit crunchy.
Okay, so then my follow-up question, because I was saying it earlier as a joke, but what about like macaroons? And then macaroons with a double O. Those are, because that's technically, one's a French cookie and one's like a cocoa cookie.
Yeah, but because of the shape.
Because they're round and small?
Because they're round and small and kind of flat, right? Like a macaron.
Yeah.
It's a French term. The macaron is very delicious. The macaron it's two different. It's like 2 cookies with a filling. It's like an Oreo. It's a French Oreo, basically.
It's a fancy French Oreo.
Yes,
which makes a lot of sense now that you say that, because I fucking love Oreos. But okay, you just explained a lot of things in me right now.
But yeah, so that's what we're working with here, right? That's what a cookie is.
All right, before we get into your top 5, because I don't know if the audience can tell, you did a lot of work for this. I didn't do jack shit. So before we get into your top 5, and then before I improvise my top 5, what are some of your below cookies? Or maybe like, I guess maybe like a better question would be like your underrated cookies that didn't make your top 5, but you still want to like give them a little love.
Like honorable mentions?
Honorable mentions, thank you. See, this is why you're the co-host, man, because I'm a fucking idiot.
You are not an idiot. If anything, you're just endearing,
a lovable idiot. An endearing fool. But yes, what are some honorable mentions of the cookie genre?
Macarons did not make my list. The chocolate chip cookie did not make my list.
Ooh, an American classic did not make my list. Interesting.
The snickerdoodle. I wanted to put the snickerdoodle on my top 5.
Bro,
it was just outside. I mean, it's like maybe number 6.
It's a low key sleeper.
I love a good snickerdoodle.
I love me a good snickerdoodle too, man. Yeah. It's a sleeper cookie for sure.
Yeah, a sugar cookie also did not make my list.
Another sleeper. A good, because sometimes sugar cookies, depending on who makes them, can be hit or miss.
Right.
When you get like a good sugar cookie, it slaps.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah. That fair? Fair.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Let's start with yours. What's your number 5?
Yeah, let's start with my well prepped list.
I'll go first.
I'll tell you my number 5. I already decided that while we were
you
talking.
did?
Yeah, I have it. For me, it is the macaron.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I what I love about it and what I've grown to love about it, especially here in Texas, there's a little pastry shop down the road from where I live called Mon Cherie, and all they make is macarons and a couple of other things. They make like a little creme brulee and occasionally like some kind of like little slice of cake. But the bulk of what they sell is macaron, right? And what I love about it is just the versatility of flavors you can get in it, like how bananas they can get with it, and how regardless of what flavor you get, it's a good fucking cookie. Like you got your traditional flavors, like you got vanilla, you got chocolate, you got your fruity flavors like strawberry, blueberry, mango, maybe stuff like that. And you get a little more ambitious, like candy watermelon. You might get in there a creme brulee macaron, a cookies and cream, a s'mores, and Nutella, an Earl Grey, and then you get that's the crazy thing. Then you start getting like flavors you wouldn't go on my cookie, like Earl Grey, lavender, rose. Right? You wouldn't think that, but you eat that cookie, you're like, I love me a good lavender macaron, dude. And you get like, and then you can get like pistachio, and it gets so versatile. Birthday cookie, like fruity pebbles macaron, like, you know what I mean? Like, so, and obviously like depending on which shop you go to that makes it, they all have similar taste, but then some of them have like their own specialty flavor ones, which is like so unique to me. So that's why I think for me, it might have been higher, but I'm fucking making this up as I go along. So my number 5 for me would definitely be macarons. I love me a good
macaron. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my number 4, just kidding. All right, what about you? What's your number 5, Mr. Chef?
My number 5 is a good old oatmeal raisin cookie.
Oh, you are an old man, dude. Confirmed.
I'm actually a really big fan of oatmeal. There's times when I've gone out for like breakfast with friends, and they're all getting like a steak skillet, or like chicken and waffles, or
a
shakshuka, which is also really good. Yeah, and I'm like, I'll take the oatmeal, please.
I'll take the old man breakfast.
Thanks.
Please, with a side of prune juice.
Just oatmeal, brown sugar, some bananas. I'm good. You know
what? I'm making fun of you, but sometimes a really good oatmeal in the morning slaps, dude. And the way you described it is literally how I like to make it too. So I'm just giving you. We're both old men. Shit.
Anyways, oatmeal raisin. If it's done right, if it's oats. It has to be old-fashioned rolled oats, right? None of that steel cut stuff. Old-fashioned rolled oats, some butter, some flour, some raisins, some molasses, and some eggs, right? The molasses and eggs really holds it together. If you can do it right, and it's amazing. I love it. It's really good.
Speak freely. A podcast about David and Kuno realizing they're old men. Okay.
That has been the theme over the past month and a half, I think.
A podcast about finding out how old you really are. All right. Well, I got to come up with a top 4 now. My number 4 is, let me do a quick Google search. I have no idea what these are called. These are legit my number 4 though. I know Knott's Berry Farm makes them, but I don't know what their names are.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? It's like a cook. It's like a short. I think it's like a shortbread cookie. And in the middle, they put like jam. What?
Yeah.
What is that type of cookie called?
A Holland.
A Hollangrata, right?
Hollangrata. Yeah, that's the word.
That's my number 4. Just because I'm a sucker for some good strawberry, or cherry, or grape jam, and then in a cookie, bro. I remember in high school. I don't eat them as much now, believe it or not. But in high school, man, and where we were growing up, they would sell those a lot too. And I would go ham on 2 bags of those things. I love those things so much.
Yeah, like little bags, like it was like 6 ounces of the Knott's Berry Farm ones.
Yeah, it's like it had like 6 or 7. It had like a serving of cookies in it. I'm just like, next bag.
It was actually higher on my list. I think it was. I had to put it at number 2.
Oh,
but I'll drop it to number 4 so we can keep talking about it.
No, this is my list. This is my list that I prepared diligently for the last 2 minutes. You stick with your list.
Yeah, well, it's my number 2, and you're right. Like, just obviously, like the Knott's Berry Farm, the traditional raspberry jam is really good. But I have myself experimented with different kinds of jams. Like I've done one with a mandarin jam, right? I've done an apricot jam with it. I've done a fig jam, like a jasmine tea fig jam with the cookie. It doesn't really matter what kind of jam you use. Like this is going to be a really good cookie.
Yeah. Look at you, my apricot jam. You bitch. All right.
Yeah. If you are going to make this at home, what I would recommend that you consider when if you are making your own jam, is to make sure that you reduce the jam enough so that it's not so watery and it really sticks to your cookie.
Yes, you really want to stick.
I've learned that the hard way.
To your cookie, yes. But my number 4, your number 2. But what was your number 4 then?
Then my number 4 is just a good old shortbread cookie.
Nice. Okay. Why shortbread?
Is this? It's really good. What I love about a shortbread cookie is the texture of it. Right, all it is it's butter and flour for the most part. Like those are the 2 main ingredients. It's just a ton of butter. But I've kind of learned that I love shortbread cookies based off of the Girl Scouts and the cookies they sell. I forget what it's called, but there's one that is a trefoil. Trefoil, all it is a shortbread cookie, and I love the texture. The way that it feels really hard when you.
That's what she said. All right, sorry.
It feels really hard when you first grab onto it and you hold it.
Sorry, I'll stop.
And then when you put it in your mouth, it gets really nice and soft, And it just crumbles.
That's what cookies do, Brian.
I can't stop thinking about it. So I love the texture, the way it kind of does like fall apart after you eat it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's very, when you make it right and it's nice and airy, it feels like heaven.
Oh,
it's so good. It's very simple, but it's so good.
Nice.
So the difference between a shortbread and a sugar cookie, well, obviously the sugar content, but it's that airiness of a shortbread that really gives it its feel and texture.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Let's do number 3.
All right. My number 3 are alfajores.
Oh.
Which, if those of you who don't know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I know it's a Peruvian cookie, but I think also
it's South American.
South America, like a bunch of different countries make essentially what it is. And you can, again, it's like 2 cookies kind of. It's almost like shortbread cookies that they make, kind of, sort of. What's like the texture of it? You would call those outside cookies.
So this is my number 1 actually.
I figured you're number 1.
Just because it's what I grew up with, right?
Yeah, of course.
What gives it its very crumbly like feel to it is the fact that it's mostly cornstarch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's like if you're gonna make a batch, it's 1 part flour and 2 parts cornstarch. So
just for our listeners, right? I'm gonna do this. Let me see if I can. Check this out, bro. This is why we do StreamYards now, buddy.
Ooh.
Those are alfajores. Let me do which one looks more like, these are the ones I kind of eaten. that look like the ones I haven't had like these fancy ones. Like every time I go with like from my godmother's from Peru,
Yeah,
and she buys me them. They always kind of look like these guys.
yeah.
Or even
That's
this guy.
typically traditional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if you look at that, so the cookie, it's two, like you said, two pieces of cookies, and in the middle it's dulce de leche,
Mm,
which
that's
is
right.
different. Yeah, which is it's similar to caramel but different. What do you guys call it in Mexico?
I think it's the same name.
I've heard people say cajeta. I'm
No,
like, what?
no, but that's you're talking about the filling, not the cookie. Yeah,
Yeah,
cajeta is what they usually call it, but it's not. It's not quite the same. It's almost more of like it is kind of like a milk dulce, but I think some regions too, depending on where you're at, actually put a little bit of caramel in it too.
Oh, okay.
I think so. It's always had like a caramel sweetness to it for me. The ones I've had.
Yeah.
But I just pulled that cookie up because I know for most people know what like shortbread and macarons. I would figure probably should pull that up, but
Yeah, but yeah, so alfajor, it's definitely something a little bit different if you are not too familiar with like the pastry world necessarily.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that's my number one. It's usually sprinkled, look, not sprinkled, but it's like doused right in powdered sugar,
it's bathed in powder sugar.
and it is so good.
They're really good. A good one's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I buried the lead on your cookies. I apologize.
That's all right.
So what's your number 3 then?
My number 3 is I did shortbread cookies. What do we have? 1, 3, 2, 1. I move stuff around because.
In the meantime, dear listener, if you don't know what a macaron is, that's what they look like. Very delicious. You can see like just an array of colors, and usually it's because it's just an array of flavors. Like the color usually represents what kind of flavor it is too. So different color, different flavor. So I love those suckers. And real quick, for our listeners, right? Shortbread. For our listeners who don't know, Brian's number 4. Right?
Yes.
What did I say my number 4 was?
We've gone off the rails.
I already forgot because I prepped.
Oh, your number 4 was my number 3, the Hollangrata.
The Hollangrata. That's what it was. Yeah. So, how do you spell that?
The way it sounds.
Hollangrata. You're right.
Hollangrata.
Wasn't that your number 2?
2 or 3. I forget.
Wow, we're so organized.
I did say number 2, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you said number 2. Your number 3 would be
the fortune cookie.
For those of you who don't know what that looks like.
Yes. So it is technically a cookie, right? Because it is technically round and flat when you first make it, and then you just have to quickly give it its shape before it cools.
All right, technically, fine. Technically.
But yeah, I love fortune cookies. Like, I don't care about the fortune inside. You can have my fortune. I don't care. I just want the cookie. Like, give me a box full of these cookies. Oh my god, it's so good.
It's basically just sugar, right?
Yeah, I mean it's sugar, flour, egg.
And that's it.
That's it.
That's the simple cookie.
Yeah, and then you roll it out flat. You cut them into rounds. You bake them for a little bit, and then while they're still hot, that's when you fold them over and give it its shape.
And for those of you who don't know, the fortune cookie made in America.
Yes. Not a Chinese thing.
In California, right? Specifically, like Northern California, if I remember that correctly.
I have no idea, to be honest.
I think that's what the origin of it is. We can Google it, but we're not going to because this isn't a history about cookies. This is about our love of cookies.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now I got to come up with a number 2 and a number 1. My number 2, I already know. It's this cookie. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. It's the Subway raspberry cheesecake cookie.
Oh,
this guy right here. So it's like little raspberry jams and like little pockets of cheesecake. It's delicious. It's one of the only reasons I go to Subway. So not to eat fresh, but to eat those damn cookies.
Yeah. eat a fresh cookie. So I've never had this. Based on the picture, it kind of looks like a white macadamia nut cookie.
Almost, but it's
But it's
it's
a slight
not.
variation.
Yeah, so it's like this one. This one looks like a white, but this one right here is mostly what it is. White chocolate, raspberry. Yeah, so it has the white chocolate in it. It doesn't have the macadamia nut. Instead, it has those little raspberry jam pockets in it, and I find that just delectable. I haven't had it in a while now, but that shit slaps, bro. And my number one cookie is, I just have to, man. It's Oreos, baby. Just the cookie of my youth. My dad, back in his healthier days, when he could do this. Now that he's older, he can't for his health. But he would literally take a packet of these, like literally like one of these packets, sit down and just eat the whole damn thing. Like legit, he would eat the whole packet by himself. That's a lot of freaking cookies. That's like 20.
That's a ton of cookies.
And he would do it, man. And it's just like, and occasionally he might let me have one or two. But
una galleta, por favor.
But it's America's favorite cookie, and I truly believe that. I loved most of the variations about it. I love anything with Oreo in it, like Oreo, like cookies and cream ice cream made out of Oreos, or like a cheesecake Oreo, or even the Oreo cereal. Like, I just love me some Oreo.
Those are pretty good.
Yeah, right.
I did like a good Oreo cereal.
Just for branding alone, number one has to be. Just for their social media presence, Oreo is my number one cookie. Not a sponsor, but
could be.
We can. All right, we did it! Wow, that was our top 5.
Do you want to recap real quick? What are your top 5?
Yes, mine. Number 5. I remember now. My number 5 was macarons.
You have a specific flavor that you love?
That's usually, again, cookies and cream is the one I usually tend to get. I also really love like all the fruity ones, so like blueberry, strawberry. I
love a good raspberry one.
A good raspberry. I'm a strawberry guy, so strawberry for me is like aces. And if I get wacky, dude, lavender. I really love the lavender one. All right. My number 4 was Holland Grotto. Holland Grotto?
The thumbprint cookie.
The Knott's Berry Farm cookies, whatever. Yeah. My number 5, Alfajores.
Number 3.
Number 3, I'm sorry, I can't count even. Wow. Right? My number 2 was that Subway. I was very specific too. The Subway raspberry cookie.
Specifically from Subway.
Specifically that one, exactly. Because also Subway has this thing where like they don't fully cook it all the way, so it's like a little chewy in the middle, which I love that about a good like doughy cookie. I love it to be a little.
Yeah. Speaking of chewy, like the Chips Ahoy chewy cookies,
dude, slaps, bro. Yeah. Honorable mention for sure. And my number 1,
Oreos.
American
Alfajor.
Okay, so you have to, honestly, yeah. All right, remind me what your number 5 was.
Number 5 was the oatmeal raisin.
All right, for those of you who don't know, oatmeal raisin, and now you figured that out. So the old man cookie.
The old man cookie.
Look at all that fiber. Good for you, buddy. Your poop's supposed to be amazing.
Yes, always, 100% of the time.
Yeah, just
not probiotics, but
your number 4 was.
Number 4 was the
shortbread, right?
The shortbread cookie.
See, I remember. I'm paying attention, relatively speaking.
You do love me,
dude. All right. Did your mom used to buy these every winter? By the way,
my mom would buy them. We get them as gifts. We would.
Oh my God, right? What's up with Hispanics buying? Like even my aunts and uncles be like, I already got 2. I don't need 5 more.
Oh, I would eat them. I would see that is I would sit and watch like Pokemon marathons.
There you go.
Finish that tin.
All right. So that explains why. All right. Your number 3.
Number 3 is the Holland Grotto. No, yes. The fortune cookie. Fortune cookie is number 3.
Was your fortune cookie? Yeah. Because you don't care about what the future holds for you. You just want that damn cookie.
Yeah, you can. You can have my future. All my fortune's yours.
Your number 2 was my number 4.
Oh, Holangrada.
And then
Yes.
your number 1 was my number 3. And it makes sense. It's the cookie of your youth, the cookie of you growing up, your culture. So, and that.
When I say cookie of my youth, like I didn't have that readily available at all times. Like I would still have to wait and like look forward to getting it. But it's basically the one where like, oh, like this is from your culture. This is.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I misspoke a little bit. That's on me.
No. I just wanted to clarify that I didn't have this all the time, but it was my favorite growing up.
But if you could.
But if I could.
All the time.
It's also really hard to make. Like to get just to get like that perfect texture, because it's very crumbly. So like when you're making the dough, it tends to fall apart. Your proportions have to be like spot on.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was our top 5 cookies. What about you, dear listener? What is your top 5 cookie? Leave it in the comment section down below, or you can add us at our podcast accounts at Speak Freely Pod, both on Twitter and Instagram. Speaking of Twitter and Instagram, Brian, Kuno, Mr. Stars, the stars of my night. Where can they find you, my dude?
You can find me on Instagram at Kuno_stars. And then if I can plug something real quick. Yeah, I recently submitted a poem
cool.
And to this online publication, right? So I like to go to I used to like to go to a lot of open mics. I never really like stood up and spoke myself, but I'd love to go, and like the community is like very supportive. You get to see a lot of art, a lot of spoken word poetry, a lot of people just their guitar and they're singing, and it's a really fun night. But one specific one I really love to go to is called Sunday Jump, and they would every third Sunday hold an open mic, and it was in Filipino town in Los Angeles. So it's very how to say it? It's very friendly to all communities, right? The Asian community, the LGBTQ plus community, like everyone was welcome. And it felt like a very nice place to go to, and I loved it. But because of COVID and stuff, they're not allowed to, convene together. And they've been doing some things like on social media, doing the whole Zoom thing every once in a while. It's been fun, right? But this year, what they've done is instead of putting out a physical zine, they have done a virtual zine. And so they've collected a bunch of poems and songs and videos, and they put them all together as a collection. And if you would like to go visit and see everyone's art, right? Not just mine. Like I actually was accepted, and so I have a small part in it. But if you want to go see a bunch of like just good art, you can go and check out the website. It's hi-fi-to-wi-fi.com.
Yes, and we'll post a link of that in the description down below as well, so people can go visit that as well. So please go check that out. And obviously, he won't say it, but I'll say it. Root for your boy. You can vote for him, root for him, let people know.
It's not like a voting thing. It is what it is. Like it's on there, and you can just go and enjoy.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, well, go enjoy it, and then tell your friends about it, and force them to enjoy it. And
where can they find you?
You can find me at DavidBMusic21 on both Twitter and Instagram. You could also come follow me on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/DavidBMusic21, where I stream myself making music, playing music, or playing video games, which occasionally has music in it, depending on the video game. You could also go follow me on my other podcasts, Men Among Monsters, my Godzilla podcast that I do with Mike Mixtape, where we're literally visiting for the first time every Godzilla movie ever made ever. And we watch the movie, we talk about it afterwards. We have a grand old time. We've had a couple of guests that we know and love, guests like Drew McQueenie, Whitney Seibold, Frankie Janish, and I'm forgetting other people. Oh, we just recently had Adam Witt too. So please go check that out as well. And that's it. That's it. That has been an episode. And announcement. Next week, we'll be doing a live episode of Speak Freely for your favorite and our favorite Thanksgiving dishes. That's right. We're going to be ranking on a tier list all of our favorite Thanksgiving foods. So if you want to, please come check that out live. We'll be having traditional Thanksgiving dishes, but also some of our favorite, maybe non-traditional for you, but traditional for us dishes like ceviche, or from me, chompipe. What is that exactly? Come find out next week while we do this live here Thursday night on our YouTube channel. Now am I forgetting anything else?
I think that is it.
I think that's it. That's all the house cleaning we have to do. Until then, we'll see you live next week. And until then, speak freely and carry on, my wayward son. I don't know where I was going with that. This is an end episode. End it.